That's a very familiar sound, literacy tree friends. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second virtual happy hour. And today is based on the first episode of Emily Hanford's Sold a Story, the podcast that is giving parents and teachers lots of big feelings and big thoughts. So the thoughts that I had, if I could ask a favor, if everybody could unmic, but possibly put your camera on so that we feel like we're in a more of an honest conversation so we could see each other. Just a request. You don't need to. In any event, Cheryl, could you jump on and introduce yourself first? I always like to defer to the big guns, you know.
Oh, I don't know if I'm big guns, but I'm happy to be here. Hi, Cheryl Ferlito. I'm the co-author of Sortagories and a special ed supervisor for curriculum instruction. And I'm just happy to be here. And I'm happy to talk with teachers who are migrating from balanced literacy to the science of reading or wherever you are in your journey. So we're happy to be here to talk with parents, teachers, whoever feels that they've been sold a story. We're here to talk about it.
This girl.
Yeah, I am Virginia Quinn Mooney, and I am the host that defers to greater minds than me. Lee, quite honestly, I'm assuming that most people are here because you're here. Lee Gaul, as you all know, was the New York City Upper East Coast, Upper West Side, no, East Side. Sorry, I should know that. East Side dad who knew that a change. I'm going to reel it back in. Lee, I'd like you to introduce yourself and present yourself whatever way you'd prefer to.
Sure. No, thank you. So I'm Lee Gaul, and yeah, I mean, I guess you've probably heard Sold a Story, which is a story about me. And I should come up for a second just to see. I don't know if they can hear, but this is Zoe. You want to pop in your earpiece really quick? All right.
Hi, Zoe. Thanks for being here with us. It's a bonus to have Zoe on the screen as well.
Yeah. So special guest right off the top. This is Zoe, and it's really her story and our sort of journey together on trying to figure out just what exactly the kids do at school. I would never known it until the pandemic, and what happened afterwards is really what goes on in the episode there. So I'm happy to jump into that later, but yeah, I'm just a parent with a kid who I want to flourish and be able to read. So that's my quick story.
Yeah, well, there's no such thing as just when it comes to being a parent. Zoe, I don't know if you noticed, but on the screen in red, well, those are your words, kiddo.
Hold on a second. Everyone loves that line.
That
you.
was
Why?
Well, because you were excited about the decodable book.
But,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And you know what else? So we are a bunch of people that our goal is to hear that and to hear that from as many kids as we can. So to hear that from you with all the hard work that your dad did was just, pretty rock star-ish, Miss Zoe. Pretty good.
Yeah, really proud of you.
Zoe, where are you now? Are you Zoe, are you in school or are you still with dad?
what?
Are you back in school or do you work with dad?
At school,
Yeah, you're back in school, right?
Yeah.
And what grade are you in? Third grade. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, obviously, because that basically when I first spoke to Emily, Zoe was, I think, just this summer out of kindergarten and going into first grade. So yeah, it's been a long story and a long process, which we can definitely get into deeper later. But yeah, so that's me, and this is Zoe.
Zoe, fantastic. How did you, this is just how did you end up aligned with Emily Hanford? How did you two find each other?
Yeah, so that really happened. You want to give me the ear thing? I was doing so I was doing research after a lot like, so I'm assuming most people have heard the episode, and much like Corinne, I ended up being a fly on the wall and seeing kind of what was happening in the classroom. And so I started Googling and stuff, and it wasn't this moment where I'm like, something is wrong. I got to figure it out. I think I had this assumption that I must just be kind of missing something. So I was doing a lot of sort of Googling, and on my phone I have this thing called my Google feed, and it's just basically a feed of different articles that it thinks I'm going to be interested in, you know, and politics, pop culture, whatever. And one was just like, you know, how a flawed idea about how kids read, you know, is something. And I was like, wait, what is this article? And it was at a loss for words. And so I started digging into her research, and that's really where I kind of had my full on, like, it wasn't just a suspicion. Now there was sort of validation out there that this issue was a real issue. But in the interim, I was on Twitter trying to figure out if there was like hashtags my kid guesses words, or like, I just was really trying to figure out where do I even begin. And I ended up becoming pretty vocal on Twitter. I ended up also joining the Parents Association at the school. I also just was trying to do everything that I could to question the people that were sort of responsible for this reading style. And I eventually sort of landed on the Lucy Calkins name. And it turns out that she was doing an office hours one day for all the parents. And so I decided to join that, and I recorded myself talking with her and asking her questions. And then I wrote a thread after on Twitter, just saying like, tried to ask Lucy Calkins, you know, about what was going on with reading. Here's sort of her response, and it was so frustrating. And you know, I won't paraphrase it here, but you know, essentially, I was just sort of exposing that conversation, and a lot of people it resonated quite a lot with, and a conversation started, and then eventually Emily direct messaged me on Twitter. She DM'd me and just was like, "Hey, you know, would you mind if we sort of spoke offline, and you know, I could email you about something?" And so we just started emailing a little bit, and you know, Corinne Adams, her story in the first half of the podcast is really, it's the same. You know, I was there and I just sort of was really confused. I tried to figure out what was going on, and so that's how I ended up, you know, on this whole journey of discovering, you know, sight words make kids look at words like they're pictures, when the brain processes information via text more quickly than pictures. So if they're sending them a big list of sight words to send home, they're just memorizing what the shapes look like as if they're pictures. And I thought to myself, like, that can't be good. It's not only not helping to read, but that actually can't be good. That's got to be sort of making things more difficult. And, you know, so I really dug in. And so I started this conversation with Emily, and it was, I think, one of the sort of perfect examples of nothing unique. You know, there's nothing, the thing that's so frustrating about this podcast, I'm very happy that it's getting, you know, traction and that it's resonating with people, but I'm pissed off about that, because it means that everyone who finds it resonating with them is impacted by it. And it means that there's a kid or two or 30 that are impacted by it. You know, there's just the downstream impacts of this literacy crisis, and that's what I call it, a crisis, are really too significant to ignore. It's a big deal. And that's why, when I began to do the research, you don't have a peer group except for finding people online who seem to be having the same issue. So I would try to bring it up with other parents. I just felt kind of crazy. So, it was great validation to find out that there was something to this hunch. The proof being that my kid and most of the kids in her class seemed to be all struggling in the same way with learning how to read. So yeah, that's a long answer for an even longer journey and process that we've been through. But
Lee, I love your answer. I looked you up on Twitter and your description is accidental reading literacy advocate.
yeah,
Because that you describe your journey as kind of an accident, right? And you're rightfully frustrated, and yeah, I forget the words you said, pissed off, angry. And my question back to you is, or all of us, is what about the people that still don't know? What about the people that still haven't listened? We started this unofficial group, this grandmother reading science group, because now we're reaching out to, I guess I'm aging myself, but our friends, and we're saying, well, have you heard of this? And they're like, oh my gosh, these grandmothers are going to unite. Don't let us, you should be afraid of us grandmothers. So
yeah,
you're feeling it as a dad, we're feeling it as grandmoms, it is
yeah.
really frustrating. So thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy to. And again, I also have to say, yeah, it's a problem though. It's a problem. And one of the things that really was frustrating for me during this process was that I even have a teacher friend who's a dear friend of mine who lives in Canada, actually. And I'm like, listen, this thing is happening right now with me and with Zoe and with remote learning. And, I want to sort of just share a little bit with you. And, she even was resistant to it. She was sort of offended by it and, was defensive as a teacher. And I'm not sure I presented it with the right expectations or maybe with the right approach, but at the end of it, I thought, if even one of my closest friends says to me, this is, I don't know about this, then, some stranger, how are you going to get them to change, right? It takes collective action to be able to get those big changes. And so, don't stop trying to influence that teacher friend. But, I think one of the struggles for me was really navigating the politics of reading and curriculum. I don't want to share the school that my daughter goes to. And it's the internet age, you can figure it out, that's fine. I'm not going to share it because I think that the teachers and the leadership and the principals are wonderful. They're wonderful. They didn't go into this with sinister intentions, as far as I can tell. They're completely dedicated, hardworking, incredible people. And actually, one thing that didn't end up in the podcast is the fact that Emily tried to reach out to my daughter's first grade teacher, because when I started having conversations with her teacher in first grade, we had already begun the curriculum at home, where I was piecing together phonics materials, and we had our first sort of parent teacher. And I said to her, I said, listen, with Zoe, she's not really picking up on the reading with guessing the pictures and stuff. I said, I've worked with her specifically on phonics. I've worked with her on, segmenting and blending and phonemes and digraphs and diphthongs. And I'm working with her on all of these concepts, and they're really what we do when it comes to reading, and not guessing the pictures. And she was like, well, you know what? I will put a Post-it note on pictures that I want her to read for me, and I'll cover up the pictures and we can just work on reading together. And I was like, that's great. I said, I've also been printing out decodable books and we've been working through those, and she loves them. She's like, please send them to me and I'll print them out here and we'll go through them. She was more than willing to work with me, which is incredible. I mean, it's incredible. But that she can't do that just for my kid. She can't change the way that she's teaching reading because it's mandated somewhere above her pay grade. And it's also not fair for her in any way to go like, all right, you know, Lee's kid gets taught this way, the other kids get taught this other way. It's just not going to happen. But she worked with me so much on it. And then the next month when we had our next parent teacher meeting, she was like, you're the one parent I really have been excited most to talk to, because Zoe's reading, even from the beginning of the year till now, is just gone like this. And I just, you know, I'm so happy. And I said, well, thank you. And you've been a great support in that. So, you know, that didn't make it in because there wasn't enough of an opportunity, I think, for Emily to go to the source, to speak with her and get her thoughts on it. And it was a little bit of a prickly situation to put a teacher in to say, oh yeah, I'm going to speak out to some reporter about how we're teaching reading, especially since I got the feeling she was starting to go, wow, this parent did this thing and now Zoe's doing a great job. That's not something that I can go against. I'm certainly not going to go on the record for it. So, you know, there are other pieces to the pie here that, and to the story that I want to really mention. You know, I don't want to demonize my school. The point is the school was sold a story. That's the thing of it. Like, really, they were actually sold a product and believed in that product. You know, I think it's really exciting that I think it's the USA Today or whatever the college rankings for yearly college rankings, they're starting to lose their credibility. And certain schools are withdrawing from the top schools. And I think that's good because Columbia University is the one that does the Teachers College writing and reading program. And that, you know, Columbia University has this great reputation, but apparently they don't have scholars who care to be up to date on research. And that's, so that, you know, that immediately, unfortunately, eroded a bit of my sense of you know, being impressed by, for lack of a better term, impressed by academia and impressed by universities that you know, were really not teaching teachers how to teach reading. You know, so it's not just the kids, it's the teachers that aren't getting taught reading. I mean, that's so frustrating. Yeah.
You know, Lee, you hit on so much and you're spot on with each and everything. One of the very first lines of episode 1 was something along the lines of like, there was many that knew and they've always known, and there was some that were like truly sold a story. And I sort of like went back and forth, and I was like, you know, I might do a poll to see, you know, who among us falls where. And then I thought, what difference does it make, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much guilt, which is part of why I wanted to have these conversations. And my friends, please, like, raise your hand, jump in comments. The point of this is to get as many people talking as are willing to share. So, you know, put that hand icon up. But it's just so ironic because over the years, I've been guilty of closing my door and teaching phonics, but I had to do it under like the cloth of darkness. And it's just, but I'll probably say this more than once tonight. I will probably say this on every virtual happy hour. I say this almost on a daily basis. You know, it's about the road ahead. And I am cautiously optimistically that Emily's story and your story and Zoe's story, like I truly believe, I think it's a big water cooler moment for education. Like, I'm hoping, but it's ironic
Yeah.
that you're in New York with Columbia College and your mayor is dyslexic. So he's doing everything he can, to move the needle in the right direction.
Yep.
But, together we're better. I didn't see, I
saw
saw
somebody put their
for a
hand up.
hand, but I didn't see. Cheryl, did you see?
Was it Lita?
Oh, you're muted, Lita. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and there's so many great educators here. I mean, all of my heroes are right here where, Sold the Story is our story. It is all of us who were closing our door and teaching, just like Virginia said. When you know better, you have to do better. And
Yeah.
there are so many of us who left public education. I left public education and founded a nonprofit so that I could do what I had been taught to do, because there was no way to continue in a world where they were asking me to do educator malpractice. It's just, when you know better, you cannot continue. And so, Lee, you know that your teachers wanted to do the right thing for your daughter, but it is an unfair thing to ask teachers to continue to do that thing when they know better.
Yeah. And the thing is I don't know who knows the right way to teach reading. Let me rephrase that. That's problematic. But I would say I don't know who really bought the Teachers College program and who didn't, because we have a lot of young teachers who are right out of school. I feel like they are fresh off of being really passionate about, the curriculum. And I think, unfortunately, what becomes so difficult to do is change your mind about something, especially when you've just spent all that time in school, becoming essentially an expert. If it was me, I would be like, people think that they have an education degree. Like, people think they know what they're talking. They're coming to me and telling me I'm not doing it right. I just spent however much money and however many years in college learning all of this. Don't come to me and tell me like you know what you're doing. I'm the teacher. Like, leave me alone. I don't know if I would be humble enough to listen right away to somebody. But I think if you've been in schools for any amount of time, there has to have been at some point a moment where, even for the ones who are still teaching it and still believe in 3Qing and all of that, where they go, the other day I felt like this little kid really wanted to understand what the letters were, and I just glanced over it and said, well, you know your letters, but does it make sense? Does it look right? That's how you're taught to do it. In fact, that's how you're taught to do it well. And that's how you're graded as a teacher to implement the stuff, right? So it's so
I just
tough.
can't imagine being taught that way. I mean, as bad as I had been taught and as bad as basic balanced literacy was, I was never taught that. And I just can't imagine, like, I was a pain in my principal's side all the time. I always questioned. I can't imagine. Those of you who know me are like, oh yeah, Lita totally was that person. But yeah, I can't imagine ever like swallowing that pill. But you're right, Lee.
Yeah.
I don't think teachers would take it from a parent who's like, hey, I'm just doing this phonics thing over on the side. But those of us who, had to do this in the quiet, had to close our doors and do this work, it is a hard thing to live in the world and know what to do and do it well for children and just keep our mouths shut. So,
well, and it's insane that you guys have to teach, covertly. Like, that's
you're right. It is insane.
That's not right. That's a problem. I don't want a teacher feel like, I don't want them doing anything covertly. That should never be, no matter what it is, good or bad. That's not fair, right?
So that's why Margaret has the Right to Read project, and she's another hero on the call. Hey, we have the science. So you were right when you said, hey, we don't all have the right answer. There's not one right answer. There are. some wrong answers. And I think that's the whole point of the podcast is there may not be one right answer. There may be something wrong with a whole bunch of this.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
people who
But
call
you-
me a fornicator because it's not like we have a whole rope
Yeah.
of stuff that we do,
Right.
but you can't ignore the bottom half either.
Right. Yeah, it's something that I get sort of frustrated about is just the idea that it makes teachers feel good about reading. Like this whole idea of curling up with a good book.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that was so frustrating, and I think what, you know, in the thread that really got discovered on Twitter, where Emily DM'd me about, was I mentioned that you have these parents practically breathless saying like, what's going on here? My kid can't really read and you know, I don't understand it and they don't seem to be able to figure it out. And then what Lucy would say is, well, what kinds of books are you reading them? And what sorts of things do they like to read about? It's like, who cares? I don't care if they're reading a shampoo bottle. That's not the point is not that they can't sound out a word because it's a boring book. That's not the point. And you know, I think the 3Qing and the Teachers College Reading and Writing Program in particular resonates so deeply with educators because it really is like, oh, look at all these kids. They are curled up and they just, isn't that a nice thing to see them all with their books that they've memorized and that they're not really reading, but it sounds like they're reading them because they know all the words and they get some words wrong all the time, you know, every single time, but it's okay because they need to work on their accuracy. It's great. Look at these little kids reading. And like, you know, it's a great picture. And like I said in the podcast, it looked like, it didn't seem like they were teaching them how to read. It seemed like they were teaching them how to look like they could read. They were performing literacy, but not being literate. And like, that's one of the things that, you know, I got a fire in me when I realized that this was happening. And I was not going to stop looking into it or figuring out how to fix it because it was urgent. If I didn't get there, I felt like this is going to impact her whole life, you know, and that can't happen. That can't happen. So I didn't really care who got in my way. If I had to do it at home, I was going to do it at home. There was no sort of like, you know, like, yeah, they probably know what they're doing there. I mean, you know, look at this school. It's great, you know, and look at all the resources and look at, you know, they know what they do. I couldn't do that because the fact was, you know, I heard all the kids struggling and, you know, so that's that was something I would not walk away from. And it was a little bit of a strange situation to be a dad. And it's, you know, my wife is wonderful and completely engaged with Zoe. And, you know, she wasn't a part of this because she was working during the pandemic and I got laid off. So I was the one that had all the time. So being a dad in mom groups, you know, I also didn't want to come in and feel like I was mansplaining anything to anyone or being like this, you know, like doing it like a dad would come in and be like, oh, this is what are you moms standing around not paying attention to how the kids are not running like it, you know. I didn't want to press it because I felt I was just another parent there, right? But I know that sometimes when dads take over, they overdo it and they sort of view it in a different lens. And I thought maybe that's just what's happening here in the beginning. I thought, you know, maybe I don't get it. You know, I don't get how reading is done. And I'm caught up on old, you know, Sesame Street phonics stuff. But, you know, I tried to sort of rally and I became really close and I am very close with all of the moms and the parents in my circle and all that. But, you know, they weren't going to be the circle that I needed to influence. It was important for me to move outside of that. It couldn't be too local. It had to be more wide net than that. So I realized very quickly that they were starting to get tired of hearing me talk about it because they had a million other things on their mind. And a couple of people took some interest, but I'm like, okay, I need to just focus this somewhere else. And so, I mean, that's where I really got active on Twitter about it. Yeah. Donna?
Hi, everybody. So my big thing is, if everyone can read just by reading, why isn't everybody reading? And
Right.
why do we bother sending kids to school to learn to read
Yeah.
if we're not going to be teaching them? If they're going to learn to read through osmosis, or learn to read because they're sitting curled up reading with a book, and that automatically makes them a reader, of course it's insanity, right?
Yeah.
So, but the balanced literacy people really believe that, that's the outcome. That's going to happen just by doing the act of reading. And our job, that was the whole crux of the Sold a Story podcast, was reading does not happen naturally. It needs to be taught, and the foundations have to be there.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's, I don't know how we can change that mindset because it's very entrenched. I personally don't have a lot of faith that it's going to happen in the next 20 years. Think about that shift, how long that shift is going to have to take to undo everything that's happened in the past 20 to 30 years. It just doesn't shift overnight. And the other driving force is money. This is an enterprise. This is a business. And these companies will do whatever it takes to stop in our tracks what is happening, because this is going to hit them in their pocketbooks. And it's a business. It's bottom line. It's a business.
Yeah. Well, and you know what I think, the balanced literacy folks are blessed by that roughly 40% of the kids who, despite balanced literacy, learn to read. No matter what you throw at them, they'll learn to read. No matter how you try, they will just learn to read. And it happens, you hear stories all the time. Somebody who's like, before I even was in kindergarten, I knew how to read. Some kids, it just, the circumstances are such that reading clicks and they are able to read, and it's not a problem. And that's great. And I think they've really hung their hats on that and going like, well, look, I mean, children reading, right? But it's not. It's more than half of the other kids who don't.
But what about our kids that are going to college and they're 18? And I heard some statistic like 50 or 60% have to take remedial classes because they can't read and write to proficiency.
Yeah.
That's who we should be talking to. The recipients of this broken system and this broken, approach to reading. Those are the people we need to be talking to, because they have a lot to say about what they're getting in their doors, and the lack of training and the lack of skills. We're just talking about reading. What about writing and their spelling?
Well, and I think there's also, it's a perfect storm because the timing is such that we live in a technological age that is ever less dependent on the page and the written word and written on the page. Typing without autocorrect or any of these things, it has just ended up, talk to text and all of these different things that are there. It is a really bad time to be a young person who not only doesn't have foundational skills that should have been the building blocks of their education, the foundation of their education. If they don't have those, if that foundation is built on sand, then throw at it, the
Right.
attention economy, and then throw on that smart literacy, which is essentially you could select text and have it read to you. So there are ways to get by without
Mhm,
reading and
mhm.
without really writing in a way where it requires proficiency. And so it's all of these factors are compounded to a point where now you have something that would have been potentially listen, there needs to be some, real adjustments on some of the foundational phonics knowledge to now, because of the generation that you're from, you literally, if you're engaged in the world, you're less skilled at these things that we used to be more skilled at before. Writing without any assistance in spelling, writing without any grammar assistance, being able to have read something for us on our phone by highlighting it and having it read the text to you. All of these different things that are, really not pushing anybody to go, you know what, I'm going to learn calligraphy and I'm going to read Dostoevsky just because it's, I've been so good at it that I want to, flex my muscles a bit. People now look at that as a niche hobby, right? Whereas writing in cursive script is, I don't know if that may actually die, except in font form. I'm not sure that will be something that people do. So there's a lot of challenges here, but I think if you were to really just concentrate on that orthographic mapping that happens in the brain and that process that needs to happen because we're not hardwired to read. And we've just made sure that was a foundational skill from the time that kids are young enough to pay attention. We'd be in okay shape, even with smartphones and virtual reality potentially being a big disruptor and all these different things, right? But it's going to be a tough uphill battle.
It is. Like I said,
Yeah.
I don't, when there's like 3.5 million teachers in the US alone.
Mhm.
Think of how many people we're closing in on 200. Woo,
Mhm.
we got so far to go. And
Mhm.
it's just not our page. It's all the efforts, the consolidated efforts of everyone. But
Yeah.
okay, so we got what, maybe 1 million people we're affecting, and think of how many millions of other people that we have to
Yeah.
influence.
I mean,
And
that's
content.
why. Yeah, I mean that is why I'm just really trying to do my best. I'm starting to set up engagements to do speaking about this as much as I can. Yeah, like maybe I can post my email somewhere if anybody wants to get in touch with me, because I can't just sit back and let it happen. I need to now use a bit of the momentum that has been created here to try and get the conversation stirred up that much more.
Lee, do you
Yeah.
want
My
me to put your
morning
email in
at
the
9
chat?
o'clock this morning, I was on a phone call, a Zoom, with a woman from Botswana, which is in Southern Africa, and she wants to put together an international literacy conference specifically around dyslexia, because in lower countries that, third world countries, dyslexia is viewed as you're just not trying hard enough, and the kids get routinely hit
Yeah.
because it's, as she put it, she says it's not a physical disability. You can't see it. So, it's a hidden, we all know it's a hidden disability. So the kids are hit and beaten because they think they're being either being strong-willed, or they're being disrespectful, or they're not working hard enough. So
Yeah.
so our reach is wide, and it's really exciting to see that it's happening.
Yeah.
But you're right, Lee. It's just you could spend 24/7 doing this work. It's just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a lot of work.
I know. And again, I had heard about this group actually on Twitter. I heard about this Facebook group, and I just don't spend a ton of time on Facebook. But I'd heard about it, and somebody's like, if you really want to get engaged with the conversation, you should get on there. And I just, Facebook will suck the life out of me if I spend too much time on there. And it's not that I love it. It's just I was one. I signed up in 2008, and it's just a time suck. But this is something I really care about, so I'm probably going to get a little more active in there, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, join us for sure.
Yeah.
You're sucked in.
Yeah, I know. Well, and the thing is it's exciting that there's, when I saw that, it's 187,000 followers or something like that, or members, I was like, wow. And then I thought to myself, like, man, really?
Mm.
This resonates with that many people.
Mhm.
Man.
Well,
that
since
sucks.
just a side note, last week we had 2,500 new members because the Sold a Story podcast just now this week it's tapered off, which is interesting because that's how it, social media is a flash in the pan. What's hot last week is not hot this week. So we have to keep that momentum up. I just noticed it, it's just not as busy as it was last week, right?
It's not, but you know what, at the same time, you will still see people who are listening to it for the first time going, what? This is my story. Wait,
right.
What?
Right.
Oh, okay. Is there more episodes of this? Oh my
Right.
God, there's 6 of them. I'm going to listen to all of these. And then they're going to go, where do I talk about this? And then they're going to, and that's the thing. This is the type of stuff where, when I first discovered Emily's work, when she did, hard words and lost for words and some of the other reporting that she'd done, it literally consumed me until it still consumes me. It still consumes me. It has an evergreen potential to be relevant, and I think more than ever, this series will continue to have, like a phoenix. It's going to rise up, it's going to die down, it's going to rise up, it's going to die down. People are going to continue to, by word of mouth, hear this. And then hopefully one day nobody talks about it because they go, oh my God, you remember when I was a kid, they actually didn't even know how to teach us to read. They, and there was a bunch of, people who eventually got that, issue raised, and now nobody does that anymore. And it was so silly, but yeah, that, hopefully the only time it dies down is when that's all over and, there's a global epiphany or something. And I don't know if that'll happen or how that would happen or when that would happen, but that's the goal. And I'm going to push it as much as I can.
Keep it up. Lauren, you want to jump in, my friend? Lauren.
You got it.
Hi. Hi, I'm
Hi.
Lauren Brenda. Thanks so much for being here, Lee. It's so nice to hear your side of the story here. I had a similar experience with remote learning, and I too am an outsider here. So thanks for welcoming me. I'm not an educator. I'm a mom.
Well, so you're just like me.
We're not going here because the conversation's been fantastic, but it's ironic because my thought tonight was it's parents that are, moving this forward. So, between you and Lee, we need you. And
Oh.
you do so much. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Well, thank you. I've really appreciated being part of this community. And Lee, I really relate to your concern about mansplaining with the administration or teachers, although I wouldn't be accused of that. I have been, hesitant to share because I'm not an educator. I'm very new here. And I'm wondering what has been most effective, and also from the educators here, what would be most well received from a parent who is not an educator. And also, just to make this even more of a challenge, I'm in a university town that is, full of know-it-all smarty pants kinds of people. And I would hate to be received as one of them, being kind of out of my. And there's a huge achievement gap here. I think we're second right behind Berkeley. So we're kind of a liberal bubble in a red state where people really rally around the public schools and are all the more sensitive to it being supportive now because it's such a hard time for teachers. And I've just found it to be such sensitive and tricky terrain to navigate, and yet I feel pulled to speak out. I'm not into social media. I made my first post to share Sold a Story with our local parents group, and it got, crickets, very little traction. And yet you can't go to a soccer game without hearing somebody whispering about issues with reading at the school. So I'm really curious about what has been most effective, what would be most effective coming from, again, an outsider who's a parent. And like the purple challenge I saw circulating, would that be well received? Or I've heard speak to some of these issues, would he be better received? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the most difficult things is, what does this process of convincing someone out of their opinion look like? And is that what we really need to do? If that is what we need to do, that's such a tough challenge. Especially if somebody has a sort of dogmatic belief about something that they never really, it's like they say you can't talk somebody out of using logic out of an opinion that they didn't use logic to get into in the first place, right? But in my case, I don't know. I mean, what do I say? Like, well, just say something that gets Emily Hanford's attention, and she'll put your story in her podcast, and in her, like, that's not going to work, right? What do we do actually as parents? Because if that didn't happen, I still would have been teaching Zoe how to read. I said nothing would have changed, except for now there's an opportunity to share the story even further and to let parents know that they're not alone, and that they could possibly, at least drive change where it counts, and that's with your kids. And I say parents, but I mean any adults who have little ones in their lives. I don't mean to be exclusionary, because there's a lot of people and a lot of kids who don't have just parents, right? And in fact, one of the things that I think is so frustrating is, when I was able to kind of step in and create a curriculum for Zoe, I had the opportunity to do that. We struggled during the pandemic. We're not a rich family, but I was able to do that. I was able to not worry about work for that time and just concentrate on finding materials to teach her. So, starting there at home was all that I could do. But the purple video and the purple challenge was, I think, the thing that drove it home hard for me, because, here you have this really thoughtful video that a parent puts together that's so smart, and it really demonstrates in a vacuum how, if your little kiddo comes home from school and seems like they can read a book, let's do the challenge. Let's do this challenge, and you'll see. It's almost like there needs to be a TikTok, a viral TikTok that goes like, hey, See if you're, and has this stupid automated voice goes, if my kid, thought she could read great, and then I did this simple test, like, and like if it's got to be something dumb like that for people to go like, wait a second, this is actually real, like that the kid brings this book home all the time that they love and they read all the time, but when I covered it up and took the word away and had them try and figure it out on a separate piece of paper, they didn't know what it was, right? Like, I don't know if it's unfortunately, like I said, attention spans are really what you're working against, and nowadays, with not only with kids, but with everyone and with parents.
Yeah, and I wonder too, with the Purple Challenge, I think the woman who did that might be a neuroscientist. So she in some way is an outsider.
Yeah.
And I'm a psychologist, and I could just see them saying, oh, these wacky psychologists and their experiments on their kids or something. I think there's a message that's hard to hear. It's hard to hear no matter the tone, the delivery, the person delivering it. So it's just very, very sensitive and tricky landscape.
Yeah.
So,
It really is. It really is. And yeah.
and I had another question kind of related, and I don't know if somebody else is about to chime in.
I was going to say that, if I don't know if anybody knows, I wrote Mississippi Rising. And so part of Emily's rise in the science of reading was her study of Mississippi. So if you listen to those early things, the hard words, and she interviewed Kelly Butler. And when I was listening to all the attention that we got here in Mississippi, I really felt like it was important to capture the whole story. And it was a story of moms. In chapter 2, which is the beginnings of change, it's Marilyn Carlisle, who was the first mom, who said, my kid can't read, and the school's not doing anything about it. And I heard about this program they're doing, is some Orton something, and they have it in Texas, and I know this person, and that's really what started it. And they got the Scottish Rite involved.
Yeah.
And if you know the story, y'all have heard this story again and again. It's repeated throughout this country. But here in Mississippi, that's what it was. And it was one person, and it was one mom. And then it was a group of really dedicated people who said, hey, let's make copies of that tape and get them out to the schools, and let's make copies of that workbook. And I just really felt like there was more to the story than Emily could tell in just one little article or one little podcast. And so that was the point of the book, was to tell all the little pieces of the story, because then there was a law. Well, the law was great, but it wasn't the whole story. And then there was letters, and letters is awesome. Y'all, I'm a letters trainer. I love letters, but it wasn't the whole story. It was a whole bunch of people, just like the people that are in these windows today, just like moms and dads fighting for their children, teachers leaving the classroom like me to do the right thing for kids. And in a place like Mississippi, it was easier because we weren't fighting monstrosity of, school districts. We just have little bitty school districts all over the place, right? So I think we got systemic change because everybody started swimming in the same direction. The moms and the dads and the teachers and the districts and the MDE. I'll tell you why the district, the Department of Education, one, we only have one for the state, and two, it was completely infiltrated with dyslexia therapists. Every decision was being made by people who were trained as dyslexia therapists. And so that's the reason I wrote the story, and it's a cool one, but don't ever think you don't have any power, because it's always going to be people like you. It's always going to be passionate people that make the difference.
Yeah. And I mean, I would say, Lauren, one of the big things to sort of, I guess, remember is, who cares what they think of you? Who cares what they think of you? If this is an important issue for you. So, it's tough to say, okay, I'm going to kind of, put myself out there and be vulnerable, but like, you know, you get a lot of people saying no, but it just takes one person to say yes to go, okay, you know what, I will listen to this. I will pay attention to this more. And, you know, and if somebody's willing to listen, you can get them to learn and to share that with others, you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because I'm finding my courage and I'm telling myself
Yes.
it's not my business what they think of me. And I got into this in trying to get services and accommodations for my own kid. So I do have those IEP meetings
Yeah.
to negotiate, as well as many parents who find them here do. So it's kind of an already probably even in a pretty good situation, which I'm not sure mine is in terms of our particular team. But even in a good situation, it's kind of, those meetings can be tense, and that's a hard entry point. I think if you kind of get into it in that way, but I think your point still stands. You still have to, you know, be brave and say what you need to say. I think is a big part of it.
Yeah, and I just want to give you some encouragement and to push for it, because you know, you care enough to spend your time here, you know, and connecting with other people to talk about it. And I would just encourage you to just go for it, because you know, ultimately, if you care about kids, you probably care about this issue. And that's the end of it. You know, I will not apologize for caring about kids. And the thing is, you know, Zoe reads well now. I could have just been like, all right, glad that's over. Your problem now. But it's, I care about all kids learning to read now. You know, I care about every kid that's in kindergarten, that's in pre-K. It didn't stop when I found Zoe was like, you know, back on tap, you know, back where she needed to be from a reading standpoint and doing well and liking to read and all that. Like, it doesn't stop there. And so, you know, I'm fired up on this issue, and just, I think continuing to be fired up and push for it is important, because, you know, not everybody's going to be successful in teaching their kids themselves. You know, the conditions were just right for me, but also I had to do a lot of soul searching around.
I wasn't for sure.
Teaching, right? And teaching my own kid, especially, that can be very much something that a kid will go, oh,
You're
you
over
know,
a little
my
bit.
parents trying to teach me. So, you know,
I've been trying to
hey,
not get too
Jackie Gray,
stomach.
I think
Probably have influenza.
I need there we go. I might have it. Got it.
there we go. All right, cool. But no, just to kind of finish up that thought, like I had to approach reading and teaching Zoe to read in a way that was super conscious of not praising her like crazy she got something right, or making it seem like I was sort of disappointed if she didn't get it right. I kept myself very even keeled when I was teaching her. I didn't want her to seek approval during our reading and during teaching. I didn't want her to do it for the wrong reasons. And I didn't want to exact any kind of punishment, even unintended, by going like, oh, that's not right. I'm like, no, come on, try. I didn't do any of that. And it was so difficult when I realized that this isn't about me. And if I go, oh my God, I can't believe you did it. And they're like, oh, that's not, it was not gonna work. I had to be very even. I had to be very much just about what we were working on. In fact, if you can hear me, I change a bit in the podcast when you hear me go like, okay, Zoe, let's, you know, last time we went over SION, now we're going to do TION. I didn't go like, when she gets it right, I don't go like, yeah, I go, yep, that's right. And I move right on. I didn't do any of those other things because I didn't want to make it about me, you know, and I didn't want to make it about, gosh, daddy really loves me when I get it right, and gosh, she's so disappointed when I don't. That was tough. I mean, I had to really think fully about, how am I going to do this? I wasn't just going to buy some cards off of Amazon and go like, all right, well, let's learn the letters and then we'll go from there. I had to really teach her, and to teach her, I had to understand, gosh, what am I as a non-teacher, what do I need to look out for here? Because I'm a parent, I'm her parent. She's going to be looking for approval from me. She's going to feel bad if I say that's wrong. It wasn't easy. It was not easy. And unfortunately, not everyone is going to be able to have the opportunities, the privilege, I guess, to have had it work. But you can try, and you can try to get the schools to adopt science-based curricula. You can try and try and try. And Zoe can be out of college working, and I'm still going to be trying to get that conversation and get that action, over the line. So, yeah.
Lee, that's a really interesting segue for me to bring us to a close, because every time I think about this, I always think, what's the one thing? And that was a great one thing. The one thing can be up here, or the one thing can be, I said last week, it could be a teacher introduces one phoneme that they didn't before, or, a teacher introduces one decodable book that they didn't before, or one parent goes to one Board of Ed meeting, and makes one impassioned plea to the district.
Yeah.
If each of us on a daily, minute by minute, whatever, basis, just thinks of what is our one thing going to be, we are this army that is continuing to do whatever we can to move this forward. And, the odd thing is, it's just to teach kids to read. It's not like, it's not political. It's not controversial. Like that's it. It's just to teach kids to read. And we have to have these, call to action meet. It's bananas, but everybody here is like-minded, and I can't wait to hear next week what everybody's one was. And Lee, I am definitely buying you a drink the next time I'm in New York.
All right, that's the deal. And by the way, you can see I took it as an actual happy hour.
Actually,
So
the truth is,
sipping on my...
I'm bringing it to a close because I'm empty.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's time for everybody to fill up. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. Right. No, exactly.
Lee, I truly can't thank you enough. And when I reached out to Lee, it was, I was on my couch by myself, and I was like, oh man, do I, don't I? Is he going to answer? And it was like, ping, I'm in. Like, I don't know what I'm in for. I don't even know if I'd explain myself. But Lee was like, I don't know what you want from, I don't exactly know what the forum is. I don't know what it is, but I'm in. So, Lee, you're in, we're all in. And, we'll talk. And big things are coming.
Yeah.
Big things are coming. We got big people doing big things.
Yeah. Well, as long as we all keep at it and keep trying to, drive change, that's all you can do. But, I'm really honored to be here. I'm thankful that our story resonates so much, and I'm really proud of everyone who takes time out of their day to concentrate on this issue, because it's really one of the most important issues that there is. And I mean, it really is.
Agree. So
thanks everyone for the courage that you have, and just keep it up, and don't let anybody discourage you. And if you have somebody you really think you want to get through to, just keep trying. And one last thing, that teacher friend of mine, I sent her the podcast finally, and she's like, you know what? I know already. Actually, our school district now is implementing phonics only, or the phonics curriculum. We've gotten rid of the other curriculum, and we're all doing retraining now on it. She's like, so thank you for speaking up about it. And I was like, yeah. So there we go. So there was my one.
There was your one. That was a big one.
That was a big one. I wanted to put the end. I wanted to end it because my friend did end up being a part of the change there. So yeah, just keep trying.
Awesome.
That's so great.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Lee, for telling your story. That's really, really helpful. And I wanted to say to the parents, you are your child's first teacher. We are all teachers together. So this business is, I'm just a parent. I don't want you to think that way. You are your child's first teacher.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
And Lauren, thank you for bringing that very, very, very cute little boy on. I see what's boy. Is that a little boy?
Yeah,
Yeah. All right.
Wasn't my doing. He has a mind of his own, this one.
He's fantastic.
Good.
All right, my friends, thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next week, I hope.
Thank you.
bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Really, you're the best.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a message now. I'd really like to connect.
Yeah, okay.
All right, sounds great.
I see Lauren's child waving to us. I see you. I see you.
He's very cute.
Yes, thank you so much. Justine, did you get your question answered? You're muted, honey. Oh, she's up. Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm lucky enough right now that our school, because I actually teach an international school in China, and we are talking, looking at a phonics program, and you know, with my the head of like lower primary, he's I've been saying structured literacy, science of reading. She keeps hearing me say it. I've sent her a thing, and she has said now that she's going to let me and the head of learning support have a final like approval that to make sure that the phonics program we do choose is structured literacy. So that's a big win. But you know, I know I'm looking out there for like a good program that we can use with international students, because we are you know, Chinese, and we've become more of an EAR school because just the demographics, more expats are leaving China. So I'm looking for a program, and I know about the the what is it called?
UFly?
Yeah, foundations, but I haven't got the manual. I have downloaded all the PowerPoints because I'm like, okay, but I go online, I can use this because it's very OG based. I use OG with the kids I work with in learning support. But mainstream class, I'm just worried because I feel like sometimes we have become a generation of PowerPoint teachers.
Mm.
And, you know, I know like I don't even use that in my class. I'm more, you know, the blending drill, physical stuff. And I'm just worried that it's just going to become something like if we have the PPT, they just throw it out the whole class. It's just like, you know, and it just becomes 20 minutes. I'm just going to do this PPT without all the interactions and follow-up work.
But you can, Justine, the UFly has, so it can be, they have the blending board, or you can, I don't know what, I generally don't know like what your access with your computers and, I'm sorry, your copiers and laminators, but the kids can also make a word mat, which is what I do, and they manipulate it themselves, and you know, it's Velcroed letters or a lot of doing magnetic letters. So I understand. I feel the same way. I remember when we went back in the classroom, I was like, I never want to open a Chromebook again. I never want to, you know, look at a screen again. But the truth is, I was wrong, right? I was wrong because we are a technology generation, and you know, like Sortagories, there's like phenomenal you know, products out there, and it is where we are. So I do understand, and there are options, but you know, you can reach the kids, you know.
So if you were purchasing because you know, this is a private school, if you were purchasing a phonics program, I mean, do you think UFly is the best, or do you think there are better ones out there? I mean, I know I've looked at Logic of English is pretty good, and Wilson's Foundations K-3, they all seem to be structured literacy.
I have to say, I don't know if anyone that's still on the call I can't answer that because I only know what I know. I haven't done research.
No, and I haven't either, but I definitely, I do like UFly. I'm sure there are others. I don't feel confident in that either, but I just wanted to make sure Justine, that you had your question answered. Because I knew you had your hand up earlier and then it was down and
Oh, yeah, the one for earlier was when he was talking about the 40%. I was gonna talk about Nancy Young's ladder of reading. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
oh
about
yeah,
the-
that was in the chat. Yeah, thank you for that as
I ended
well.
up putting it in the chat.
All
Justine,
right.
what was your question about curriculum?
It's just, I've been going on about structured literacy to my head teacher for so long, and they're like finally looking at,
Ladies, I
doing a
gotta
new
bounce off. I
product
got
program.
somebody waiting to take me to dinner.
Okay.
Yeah,
Justine, do you have, can you go on Facebook and message me?
I guess, I mean, I can just say really quickly is like, my school's looking for a really good phonics program that's structured literacy, and I'm just curious of like which good ones are out there, like. I know
Okay,
that
so we have
I-
a whole list on our site. Did you get our welcome letter? We have a welcome letter on our site that has every single phonics program out there.
I'm
that-
just making sure I'm on the correct,
Facebook page?
yeah. So,
Here, let me send it to you.
okay. And they have, and they have,
109 and 672 now.
oh my gosh, that's a lot. So,
All right, here it is. Here's the Google. So take a copy that and then go to our welcome page.
I would
And-
use, I mean, because 600 something is a lot. What would be would there be one you would recommend?
You
in an
fly is really
international
good,
setting?
right?
UFly is really good. It's
It's really
cheap.
good.
It's
It's very
90
cheap.
bucks.
It's got a nice scope and sequence.
Mhm.
It's laid out well.
Okay,
I mean, that's one you can start with. Go to FAQs to beginning SOR and it's under phonics.
okay,
In this document that I just sent you.
okay. All right.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
good night. Thanks, ladies.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
I couldn't leave because I'm the host now. I didn't want to.
Okay, I'll leave.
Bye.
Okay, so what's gonna happen? So stop the record.
Right, right.